Well, hello, I'm Dr. Julia Royston of BK Royston Publishing, Royal Media and Publishing, the Book Business Boss Consulting, and BK Royston Foundation. So I wanted to have a conversation today in regards to nonprofit. And I have three ladies with me today that have some powerful nonprofits, and they volunteer, they give of their not only their time, but their life for the ministry that they have. And for because I always have synonymous for ministry, especially if you do it any length of time. It is a part of who you are as a person. It is a part of your world. It is a part of your life. It is a part of really what you do and who you are and the call of God that is on your life. And so, therefore, I wanted to have a conversation. I have to admit, I was a little bit selfish because I'm busy doing something else on International Women's Day. So I came up with my own International Women's Day with some nonprofits and basically took care of two missions. I won't say kill two birds with one stone. That's the old school way. Uh, um, but I'm working with two missions at the same time, celebrating these ladies, celebrating what they do, as well as wanting to shine a light and wanting to bring awareness to the nonprofit world. Now, I do own BK Royston Foundation is a literary foundation. If for more information, go to bkroystonfoundation.org. So it is designed for giving away books and literacy materials to underserved, underrepresented organizations, as well as writing workshops. We do a lot of partnering with other people. I partners with Rhonda's Another Chance, donated there. I've sent books to Florida with Dr. Natalie Kennedy and DeCarmen. I'm going to be sending something when you go back to Africa. So, and have done partnered with other nonprofits. So I understand the nonprofit world. I'm the baby of the group as far as my nonprofit efforts. I'm not my nonprofit is just almost 4 years old. So you can imagine helping and working with a 4-year-old as opposed to a 16-year-old or a 25-year-old. So I want each of these ladies to introduce themselves, tell us where they're from, tell us where you can find them on social media, as well as the website of their organization. We're going to start with Ms. Mona Page first.
Okay, hello, and thank you so much for showcasing Rhonda's Another Chance. Again, my name is Mona Page, and our organization is Rhonda's Another Chance. We have been in ministry since 2020, January 2020. And we provide transitional housing for homeless women. Now, what was your question again? Because I want to stay on script.
No problem. I just need to know where. I understand. You're ready to go.
Way out there.
Just give me where you are on social media, because I know you're on Facebook.
Okay. All right. Yes, I am on social media. You can find me information on Rhonda's on our website, and it's www.rhondashouse.org. And also we have a Facebook presence. You can go to Rhonda's Another Chance Facebook page.
All righty. And we'll come back with my next question.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Natalie, take it away. Introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, where you are on social media, as well as your website. Go right ahead.
Yes, I'm Dr. Natalie M. Kennedy, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But I now live in the Tampa Bay area near like Clearwater and Dunedin, Newport Richey, Tarpon Springs kind of area. One Accord Media is my LLC nonprofit. I do business under overthebooks.com. On social media, I am www.nataliemkennedy.com. And on Instagram, I'm Natalie M. Kennedy _author. You can get me also on Facebook, One Accord Media or Natalie M. Kennedy. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No problem. DeCarmen? DeCarmen?
I can't hear.
Oh, okay. So DeCarmen Mitnow, her website is watcch.org. Can and then
Oh,
can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and
I couldn't
introduce
hear you.
yourself. Tell us where you're from, and just tell us where we can find you on social media and your website.
So my name is DeCarmen Mitnall. I am actually originally from Texas, um, Killeen, Texas, more specifically. My website is watch.org. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook at watch.inc. Um, that's where I'm all located on. So Instagram, Facebook, all across the board, it's all watch.inc.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. So I guess my first question to you all is really how you got started, and a little bit how I got started. It was the COVID. It was COVID. It was 2020, and I realized that there were some students that I had formerly taught. I retired teaching in 2018, so I've been retired now 6 years. And so I realized what was going to happen with those children that I used to serve, and that I used to, that it was a whole lot of transition. As you remember back, it's been in March, it'll be 4 years, if we can imagine that. But I wondered what was going to happen with those children because, food, internet access, all of that. So I wanted to do something. And I really strive to help and supplement and even do author talks online. I mean, we were doing everything online. We do a lot now, but we were really online then because we couldn't really go anywhere. So that's where BK Royston Foundation came about, to really provide materials, provide books. Other children had the technology, they had internet access, they had everything that they needed, but I knew I needed to help in some way, shape, or form. I didn't have a grant at the time to provide all the technology that I wanted to, but I knew I could contribute books. So I partnered with other nonprofits who were boots on the ground, working with the community, etc. So that has really been my why. And I will say this, either for-profit or nonprofit, you always have to return to your why. Part two to this question is, why is it important to have a why? Because you will move differently. You will put your resources in different ways. It will guide your steps. It will direct your steps. It will direct your yes, and it will direct your no. Because if you know why you're in existence, if somebody comes along, even with a great idea, with a great plan, and you all can disagree with me, but they come up with a great idea, if it doesn't fit in your mission, if it doesn't fit in your objective, it doesn't fit in your why and what your goals and objectives and where you aim to go, you can easily say, no, that doesn't fit within our objective at this point in time. So that's my why, and how important I feel like a why is. Like, it will help move you, lead you, and guide you. Your why sometimes is God telling you. Now, if you're a faith-based person, God will just tell you, or command you to do a certain thing, and then your why will come later. But if you have a why up front, I'm doing this in honor of, I'm doing this because it keeps me up late at night. It keeps me up early in the morning. And then it'll easily guide you when they say no. When somebody says they disappoint you, they don't come through with the check, or they don't come through with the materials, or they don't come through, period. They don't show up. It will keep moving you, even when you're disappointed. So I'm going to open it up. Who's next? Who wants to go next and talk about how they got started and what is their why and how important it is to have a why? Unmute yourself and jump on in when you're ready.
Okay, I will. I'll go ahead. One Accord Media basically actually started out as Four Dreams Ministry back in Jacksonville when I was in the military in the Jacksonville area back in the 90s. And what we would do is transport many of the single moms for transportation to daycares. And what if they don't have the means, we would just go ahead and pick up their children or take them to a medical appointments and stuff like that in that general area. That's when I found out later that there was a lot of homeless, and homeless doesn't really mean being on the street. It actually, there was a lot of moms that were sleeping on other people's couches and all kinds of other things. And that's how I tapped into what the homeless community was really about. However, I volunteered long before I went into the military. While I was in Philadelphia, my mom taught me about the passion of volunteering, because she was definitely a volunteer in the community. So it was in my blood. But what happened over the years, moving from Jacksonville and into Tampa, I found out there was even a more homeless community out here. And that is my passion. Will homelessness ever stop or not to be? That it will never be. And I don't care what another person may say, we're going to end it. It'll never end. However, we have different nonprofits, just as us around here, that can do the very best that we can for those that are surrounding us. So I went on and began to volunteer with other organizations, so that, you know, I couldn't just do it all by myself. I ended up changing For Dreams Ministry, which was a nonprofit. I wasn't getting any money at that time because of the ministry part. So I changed the name, then I dropped it, and now it's One Accord Media, where I do workshops. And for little to no cost, I try to partner with other people. I sponsor other events. I go in and do reading literacy. I try to help the homeless with sharing my knowledge and resources. So we continue to do that. And that's where we are right now with One Accord Media. We're branching out until to do workshops with other organizations, which I'm really excited about. And even doing all of that, I became a case manager for a shelter. So I got to learn more and more. I did my dissertation on the leadership in the homeless shelters and how they can, the world could know a little bit more about what goes inside of shelters. So I've been really, really involved. My why is just, I say the why. Why do we have homelessness? Why do we have these things that's happening within the people that are on the corners or sleeping on? I just say I need to make a difference whatever way that I can, and our organization here. My main thing is partnering with others who are already out there, 6 or 7 organizations that I partner with to try to get the resources out to the homeless or the people, as they say, the unhoused, we would say, the unhoused that are out there. And to use my knowledge of reading literacy, financial literacy, and just partnering with other people. So my why is like, yes, why is this happening? But let me make a difference to the why.
Okay, so the new terminology, I want to be politically correct. So it's unhoused now instead of homeless?
Yeah, that's another word that I've been hearing. It just kind of like happened maybe about a year ago. The unhoused, I guess, for politically correct, because homelessness has all these little, ding, ding, dings. So we're saying the unhoused, because I guess it's more politically correct. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I learned something new, as always. Ms. Mona, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. My why. Back in about 1995, I've always been a supporter of the homeless, and I always volunteered. And just one day I was sitting in one of the shelters volunteering, serving coffee. And I seen this little old lady. She had to be at least 80 years old. And I said, what in the world is as rich as America is that we have a senior this age out here homeless, no place to go, And then God just tapped me on my shoulder and said, you do something to help her. Well, of course, I kind of giggled like, yeah, sure, God, But it kept on and on and on. And it just says like, okay, start a transitional home for women. So I said, I fought it for another year or so. And then I said, okay, God, I'm going to do it. But I don't have any money, So, but God revealed to me, yes, I did have money. And the way I got started with my ministry is that I drew money out of my 401k. That's how I got started. And
Oh my.
with the name Rhonda's, I had a sister. She was an alcoholic, and she drunk herself to death. So that's where I got the name Rhonda's. And then I thought another chance, because we all deserve another chance one way or the other. And our mission is um, to provide transitional housing for homeless women. And I still use homeless. I don't kind of get caught up in that unhoused and rehoused and all that kind of stuff, because I just kind of do what I do. And then we offer services to women, because I get a lot of phone calls of women. And this is a change in culture for us women that have never been out on the streets before, looking for where I don't know how I got out here, but I'm out here. What do I do? How do I do? So we refer those women to different agencies, and it could be a place, because our home is only set up for like 3 women, but there are agencies there where that can accept more women in those type of situations. And also we partner with other nonprofits through our Acts of Kindness program. And that's a program where we partner with other agencies that kind of do what we do. We kind of combine our services, because we have a food pantry. So we kind of share our resources and help other families that are in need.
That's a wonderful thing. So okay, so you drew out of your 401k. You can't tell me nothing about being dedicated. Okay. So I mean that was kind of the first thing that happened to me. I was like, well, Lord, nobody's gonna give. He said, you have to be the first partaker. He said, until you give, ain't nobody else giving. So I'm not gonna let nobody else give. And I was like, okay, yeah. So exactly that's what happened. He said, if you're going to lead a thing, you got to give first.
Right.
You have to be the first one to give. You have to be as the leader of it, you can't expect people to give something. It's like David said, I will not offer the Lord something that costs me nothing.
Exactly.
So if this is costing me something and I'm sacrificing for it, but your 401k, woo, that crosses a big line, because I know a lot of people who wouldn't do that, who wouldn't dip into that. And
my financial person cringes when he found out.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Yeah, but the Lord said,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I had the money
if he
there.
said it, he's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he said it, if he commanded it, he's gonna provide for it.
And absolutely. And I haven't missed a bit of like my in fact, once I did it, everything tripled. So
wow. Yeah, you know how God works. We walk by faith and not by sight. So when we do what he said, make sure he said it, because he's gonna back it up, and he's gonna pay for it. Whatever he says, he's gonna pay. He's gonna pay for it. Absolutely. The Carmen.
Yeah, so I actually I think that it has a lot to do with the why, but I also think for me it was more so about purpose. And I just feel like sometimes we don't always talk about that. And like you said, why I'm doing this is definitely important. But I feel for me per se, mine was more so like I felt like it was my purpose, like it was my destiny to do what I'm doing in Uganda, Africa. So, my journey started in 2011. I was in college and I went to Africa as my first missionary trip to Africa. And when I got there, I don't know, it was just like I felt like I was home. Like I felt like looking up at the stars, like it was like I was meant to be there in that place at that time. And that God was calling me to something bigger than I knew for myself. And so then getting there and experiencing that and just learning about the dynamics of a different culture, and just that there wasn't enough representation of people like me um, in that particular culture, which is one of the things that was very hard for me to kind of grasp, because I'm thinking like this is the motherland, so why wouldn't they see a representation of people like me? But they were just in awe with like me and my 2 now board members, because they never seen 2 older women that were sisters that age with gray hair, because the life expectancy in the area was about 40 years old.
Oh wow.
And so they never would see a sister live to that age. and they were mesmerized by my hair and everything about it. And I just remember, like, when we went to this particular orphanage, if I didn't eat, they didn't eat. Like, that's how much power representation has in that type of society, in that type of culture. Like, your representation matters. And so the children, if they saw me not eating their food, they thought their food wasn't good enough, and so they didn't want to eat. And so it just kind of showed me the importance of us showing up in those types of cultures. And then to learn that a couple of years later we'll be the only one out of five black owned nonprofits in Uganda, Africa, which, is not really heard of from what the officials have told us. And so it's just one of those things that it was like walking in your, just finding my purpose, finding my divine destiny in Uganda, and seeing that there was a need, and specifically like disaster relief organizations. They don't really have a lot of organizations that come in when disasters strike, and they leave different communities in shambles, like landslides and mudslides. And people say, hey, what about the American Red Cross? Well, a lot of those things are defunded, so they don't have the funding to actually, service the different people that are in need. And sometimes it results in some of those people going to refugee camps, or they go to the outskirts of other communities where they're not welcome, and they end up being in a more dire need. And I remember that first trip, 75 children being in one orphanage, and the government had only given them 3 months to find sponsorship, or they would be basically abandoned. And I just remember them only eating one meal a day. And I remember as well the fact that these kids were passing out from heat stroke because not having access to water. And I just felt like we needed to do something. And the organizations that were around us, they were at capacity. So it was like they really couldn't do too much. And so I remember coming back, I'm like maybe 20 at the time, 21 at the time. And I remember coming back and saying, hey, we have to do something about this. Because when we got back to the US, I remember getting word that one of the little boys that we paid for medication for, he ended up passing away. He was only 3 years old, and the medication only
Wow.
cost $15. But the mother that we gave the money to, she decided to take the actual the money and use it for the kids that were in need, instead of her other kids, instead of the child that was sick. And so at first I found myself like puzzled by that. But then as I grew and got my degree in cultural studies, and learned more about the culture, I had to understand that when you have to make a decision like that, it's never an easy one, but it's also one of survival, right? But I just felt like if we could help it, you know what I'm saying, we could do something to make sure that parents didn't have to make that decision. Then we needed to do whatever we could to do that. And so I got with the two older ladies that had came with me. I'll say seasoned ladies that had came with me.
Thank you. As they say, thank
And
you.
yeah, seasoned ladies that had came with me. And I got with them, and they were pillars in their community. So we end up coming together as a board, and they've been with me for over 10 years
Wow.
now. And so, just we've all been working together to make sure we, come together for the cause, and just how important Uganda was. And like I said, just representation matters. So for me, it was a more of a of finding a divine purpose, and saying like, this is what I feel like God's putting me here to do, to be a blessing to these children, to sow into these children, and then to also make sure they have the things that they need.
Right, 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 right. Okay, so while you're on that same vein, I mean, we're the three of us are all in the US, but what real challenges have you faced having an international nonprofit?
The international nonprofit, I want to say, is because you have to do paperwork on both sides. That's the real challenge, because we also had to get an NGO status. We also had to get NGO status in Uganda. So we
So what
can't,
is
you can't.
NGO status?
So NGO is non-government organization. So here we have what they call a 501c3 nonprofit organization.
Right.
Well, there it's an NG, it's called NGO. So it's recognized as an NGO. So it's the same exact thing. You get exempt status, but it's different. You have to register in their particular country as an NGO.
Is that hard to get, or was it
Oh,
easy? It's just a lot of
it's
paperwork.
It's the same. Like, we end up hiring a lawyer because you can probably get it on your own, but you have to go. It is a lot of paperwork. So with you know, in the U.S., I'm actually a nonprofit consultant, so setting up paperwork was nothing for me. You know what I'm saying here.
Right.
But in Uganda, we had to get a lawyer because, and we had to get a lawyer because, when in essence, what you need is you have to go through several different councils, and you also have to go through several different layers of government to to get approved. So it's almost like, how, equivalent to how we would set up like a business here.
Right.
That would be equivalent to what we're doing here. So like we would
Right.
have to set up a business here, and so you would go and get your paperwork kind of uh, like finished. Then you would submit it to the government. Then they would approve it, and then so also you have to have people on the ground, like almost like how we have to have a board members here. You have to get
Right.
like the council members in the community to say to work with you to approve things. So you have to have a constitution. You also have to have bylaws and things like that set up as well too. So you definitely have to have certain systems in place in order to do that. And by the grace of God, we've worked with our other board member. He's actually a resident of Uganda, and he's been with us for 10 years. And we've been able to work with him in order to get a lot of those things established. But it's been difficult because you run into, it's a third world country. You run into people that
Yeah.
you always have to cross your T's and dot your I's, and the paperwork. If you're not familiar with it, you need somebody that's familiar with it. So
Right.
I would
Right.
say that's the biggest challenge, is making sure that you understand how the system works, and then also employee pay. All that stuff is way different than when you're paying here. They have
Oh, I can
different laws,
imagine.
different things that count. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then the communication. We've had to find different ways to make sure we've communicated with the people there. So we have to use like WhatsApp and stuff like that, which is different than here you can just pick up the phone.
Right.
So
And you just call people. Wow. Well, and I guess the biggest victory for you is when you're able to help save a child.
yeah, that's it. When we're able to just, we don't just do children. So we're actually a community development organization. So we actually help women in just the community. So we help rebuild the community, and then we also help the women and the children. So honestly, it's just the impact. The biggest
Right.
victory is just, even just was recently there in November, and we had over 300, 400 people that came out, and just to see the impact that we're making. I think that's the big victory. Not even so much saving one, but impacting them in a way that they will remember this for the rest of their life. It's these
Exactly.
people that
Exactly.
have come from the US and have blessed us, in whether it's just clothes, whether it's food, whether it's just inviting them to celebrate with us, that they'll always be impacted by what we did in Uganda.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you go to DeCarmen Mitnell's Facebook page, you'll see pictures of when she was there. She had some beautiful images that there, Uganda. So you actually get to see the facility and where she is and where they're building, and the people, the colors, it's almost like you can taste it, touch it, smell it. the whole 9 yards. So that's a wonderful opportunity. So visit her Facebook page, because it's fortunately all of us are active on social media, so that we can have the opportunity to show it and see it, etc. So Dr. Kennedy, tell us about the challenges you face.
Excuse me. Yeah, some of the challenges, because I've been doing this since like 1992 on up, has been financially. Everything that I have actually done has been out of my pocket. But I kind of I would always say, like for my tithes and offerings, I'm going to budget here, I'm going to budget this. So I always kind of was budgeting how much I would spend. And all the time, without fail, I always go over. So it's like, oh, well, that, I was only supposed to do this amount. So, and I end up doing more than when the register pulled out the long white piece of paper there. So, but I continued on because, again, it is my heart. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I have always done. So money has always been a situation. I did do grants a long time ago. And I was getting denied back and forth. That's why I kind of switched up the name. And then I just said, whatever I'm going to do, I know the Lord's going to help me. He's going to provide for me. And still all of it still comes out of my pocket. But I also get with other organizations. I move around a lot they know what I do. So they'll donate to me, and I donate right out the door to the other organizations. Somebody gives me a bunch of towels. I take those towels and I give it to Mr. Bubbles, who does showers out in the community. So I kind of rotate stuff around. So I'm always driving out in these streets and, putting donations all around to different organizations. So that's been my challenge is just the money. I don't really think about it too much because I do get a lot of donations. But the other one is working together with other people. I try to work, get in with them. And a lot of times they, I don't know, they just no, I don't hear back from them. For example, doing workshops, I tried to get with someone to do the workshops, him and Hall and all that. So eventually at some point, I told myself, especially for this year, I'm just going to do it myself, the best that I can, instead of me waiting for many years for these people to either come back to me to communicate. They know what I do. So just say, yes, I'm open. I'm an open book. Here I am. Take me, all my knowledge, blah, 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 but no, so I figured this is the year from this point on for me to do it myself, which will be a challenge because I have to get out there and network. It's a whole lot of stuff, but you already know, Julia, as well. It's just, that's the challenge. And the third challenge is just getting some of the individuals that I've seen for 12, 15 years off the street. I did a devotion, 5 minutes we were supposed to do before the feeding. And I said, hey, how many of you guys were here 12 years ago when we were behind the laundromat? 4 people raised up their hand, and that was 12, 15 years ago. Wait a minute. Why are you still in this same situation? So that challenge is trying to get those folks that I see all the time, monthly, to get them to understand. And hopefully, I know there's a lot of mental issues, but still just to say, hey, you got to do better. We got to help you off these streets. So, and I also like to help my veterans, and that's another challenge as well.
Oh, yeah.
So those are my challenges. Yeah.
That's a totally different challenge within itself, the veterans population, because I'm like, why? That's a different conversation for a totally different day, because I'm like, they, good, bad, or ugly, they serve their country, and the country doesn't seem to serve them. So that's just kind of my take on that. And I understand, because sometimes it turns into a lifestyle. It started out as a situation, but now it's turned into a way of life. Ms. Mona?
Okay. Well, with me, one of my challenges are that women that we try to work with, that they're just not ready for a structure. And in order for you to get on your feet, you have to have some kind of structure. And so that can be a challenge. But once we get a woman that goes through the program, and once that light bulb goes off, then it's just no stopping them, but just getting them to that point, And with some women, we just don't get to that point because she's not willing to to like say, well, I'm a grown woman. Okay, grown woman, then do what you do. I mean, you just have to let it go. And then I was
Right.
the sister that was talking about the money part. I understand that completely because, like, normally if I see something that I want, grants just don't work for me right now. But I'm still open to grants. But right now, if there's a need and if I have to go in my pocket and take care of it, then so be it. Now I'm going to pay my tithes and my offerings because that's what the Bible says to do, your 10%. But I have never missed any mortgage payments. LG&E ain't never been cut off. I travel a lot. I mean, I just, never. So I really think with the money part that everything, when you put it in God's hand, it always works out. So that's kind of how, and I know it sounds pretty simple, but that's just simple is good when you're in ministry, because when you start trying to blow stuff up and complicate stuff, it's just like, oh Lord, you just like, but really ministry is simple. First, God first, you have to pray and you have to listen. And those are some of the keys that I've lived by, and it's worked for me like over this like 24 years.
Yeah. Well, and then you got to act on what he says. And so I
Absolutely.
know I've seen, because
Absolutely.
me and Miss Mona was standing in church one time, and she said, "I got to replace 2 water heaters. I got 2 houses. I got to replace 2 water." I'll never forget that.
It's
And I
crazy,
was
man.
like, I don't know how. I'm gonna have 2 water heaters. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I don't know how God's gonna do it, but I need 2 water heaters.
And he
Miss
did
Mona
it.
and I was,
And
yeah.
to top it off, the people that did it didn't charge me anything. I don't know where this woman come from, but I wasn't charged for it. And plus, I got two, not one but 2 new air conditioners, one for downstairs and one for upstairs. So I said, "Okay,
Yeah, I
God,
know.
you good?" I just can't. I mean, that ass and you can
You
and you
just can't beat him no
receive.
kind of way, can you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have to do it his way. You have to do it when you really have a heart for it. Now you have to have a heart for it, and you
Yeah,
really have to have the pure heart for it and the pure heart after it, because
yeah.
I'm called to the literacy piece. That's my
Uh-huh.
world. Books and
Uh-huh.
all of that. That's where I'm called. That's my lane, and I stay in my lane and I
Right,
do well in my lane. But I
right.
look at other people's lanes and I was like, ooh, I don't know how you do, because I see Dr. Kennedy. She's out there all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I see the kids she served. I see the bookstore that was there. I mean, all of that. And if you just get in your lane and do what you're called to do. Now, the Carmen's in Uganda. I haven't been to Africa yet. As far as close as I went is to Spain. And so I'm just like, oh, I need to get there. I know me and Miss Mona been talking about it. I gotta get there. She's already been, I think, but I gotta get there.
Mm-hmm. I have.
So I have to get to Africa eventually, and before it's all over with. So I'm gonna move right along. Uh, well, we do have people.
She'll hop back on.
You know how technology is; it does its own thing when you
Right.
get ready. So we're back, and I hope you all can hear me. You're listening to a
Yes.
special that I'm doing with these excellent women that run nonprofit organizations, and we've been talking about the challenges. We've been talking about some victories. We've been talking about, if you don't have God, I don't know how you're going to do a nonprofit. But it's going to take God, and it's going to take hard work, and it's going to take commitment. It's going to take tenacity. It's going to take love. But so if someone were to say they're going to start a nonprofit, if they're going to start volunteering, what would you think the first one, two, or even three principles that you just feel like this is like my next to last question. I got one more after this. But what would you think would be, well, one or two just key things that you would need to have? Who wants to start?
Okay, I can begin.
Go ahead.
Number one, you have to have a clear vision, because if you're not clear on your vision, you're going to run into some problems. You don't want to take shortcuts. I know people that bootleg ministry and like just do it the right way, just go on and get that 501(c) and just turn that paperwork in and get your certification, because it really helps, like when people do donate, that you are a 501(c)(3), and then count the costs and the cost, like what is it going to actually cost to run my ministry? Like if I don't get grants or donations, like where's the money coming from? So you need to start from A and all the way to Z to figure out just what the cost is going to be for your ministry. So those are my
Excellent.
three takeaways.
Those are your three. Who's next? Excellent. Excellent.
Well, yeah, my takeaway is probably almost the same. I'm helping someone now do it, but I told them, I said, so what is your plan? You know, who, what, where, what's really happening? They'll say, oh, I want to do a 501(c)(3) just because I feel it. No, you gotta have the plan. Like you said, the vision. You have to know who, what, and your whys. And you might not be able to do it alone. One person wants to do it by themselves. Well, you can't really do it by yourself like that. Have the passion for what you want to do, because if you fail, if you start failing, you might give up. So just have that passion. Is this something you really want to do? Is this your purpose? Like being over in Uganda, and of course the money. Start saving up now. Split pennies, nickels, dimes. Put it away, because it's going to cost for the paperwork to start. Just that part right there. I mean, you can work off of nothing. You can not even have the paperwork, but at some point, to be official and legal, you have to pay for it. So I always say, hey, this is going to cost you about this much. So start saving it up now. So those are my tips. Thank you.
Exactly. Well, the other thing too is that people are not willing to they're not willing to donate if they're not able to be able to write it off, etc. So I know that has been my thing too. No, go ahead and file for it, because people, they can give you money, but they don't get the benefits of having a tax write off. So you're absolutely right. Passion, and then having a vision, and then counting up the cost. To Carmen.
So my answer is going to be a little bit more from the perspective of, this is kind of what I do as a nonprofit consultant, right? So if I was to speak to anybody, the main principles is, one, the key thing is finding the right people. Don't you don't want to go into a nonprofit by yourself. Just being completely honest, you know what I'm saying? You want to find the right people, and not just any people. Like a lot of people, like, let me set up a nonprofit and get my family members. No, we're not doing that. We're setting ourselves up for success. We're setting ourselves up with people that we know can help us to build. These my board members all give. There's not one of them that doesn't give. And we had a requirement with our board members. This is how you set up your foundation: is all of our board members had to give a certain amount to get started. So you're not in it alone. And every year, my board members have upped it every year. So I don't think not one person gave under $1,200 last year. So you get donations in from the people, of course, but my board members are expected to give, because you can't ask somebody else to give if you're not giving. So I think I feel like that's the main principle, is to build your team the correct way. You're interviewing for your team, you know, that you're interviewing people. I have a top 10 questions that you want to ask people before they become on your board. So you don't just go and get anybody. I was very strategic. The two ladies that I chose were pillars in their community. They knew everybody. There's not one person that he didn't know. So anytime we say, hey, it's time for us to go, when we went to go, when we it was time for us to go last year to Uganda. I think one of my board members raised over $5,000 just from people she knew. But that's because she knows people in the community. She knows old money, she knows new money, but she just knows people in the community. They've been doing events in their community for a long time. And so, they do the MLK walk, they do all these different events. So they know so many people. So you need to choose the right people. Don't go for people that is easy and that will, go along with everything that you're saying. I'm the youngest one on my board. Everybody's older than me. So, you go for people that are going to bring something to the board, that are going to add wisdom, that are going to add the clarity, that are going to help you to grow as well too. And then you also know that they can pull their own weight. You know what I'm saying? Because I can imagine it can be a little frustrating if it's only you bringing in the donations. But if everybody's
Yeah.
bringing in the donations, then it's not all on you. So you want to make sure that you select the team. Like I said, my board member's been with me over 10 years, and I have
Right.
7 of them. So you want to select team members that can pull their own weight, and that also have something to bring to the table. And I think that will be one of my main principles. Also, anybody looking to go into this field, just know that can be a lifetime commitment. Because people, once you get started, people are now relying on your resources and your sources that you're bringing to that particular area. Like us, for instance, is Uganda. So you have to know that this is going to be a commitment. So just know, just as like you start a business and it's a baby, you know what I'm saying? Just know that when you start a nonprofit, it's a commitment that you're making to the people that you're servicing, that you're going to be offering these services, and they're not going in with the anticipation that it's going to end. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's something that you have to be willing to continue to grow and continue to go forth with it. So I tell people all the time, you want to make sure this can be potentially a lifetime commitment. And then I want
Right.
to say the last thing that I would say is get a consultant. I'm just saying, because you need a business plan, get a business plan. You also need a fundraising strategy. Like the way that we have donors that have been with us for 10 years and donated for over 10 years. Every year we can anticipate this donation. You know what I'm saying? But you don't build longevity without having a financial strategy or a fundraising
Right.
strategy or a fundraising plan. Because how do you maintain those donors? I just sent thank you cards, even as the president of my organization, to the donors that donated last year. And just those personal touches is what's kept us with those same exact donors for a long time. So, and then also my board members as well, they're very personable and always do extra stuff to say thank you. But I think showing your board members appreciation, just those different things that you put in place, it promotes longevity. But you want to have a plan in place to know how do you address each donor at each level of giving, and how do you retain them and keep them. It's easier to keep a donor than to actually find a new donor, you
Right.
know? So I would say that those would be the biggest 3 things that I could say um, that you definitely want to consider.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that wraps up our time this today, but I appreciate all your information. I'm gonna put everybody's information up there to reach out. Go to watch, that's WATCCH.org for DeCarmen. For Ms. Mona Page, go to rondashouse.org. And for Dr. Natalie Kennedy, go to Natalie, that's NATALIE Kennedy .com. And then, of course, for bkroystonfoundation.org. I want to tell each of you, thank you so much for your service. I know Dr. Kennedy's actually been in the military, but I always feel like, the old song in my home church was in the army of the Lord. And I feel like we're all in the army of the Lord. And being able to reach out, whether it's across the street or across the state, and definitely across around the country and around the world, is literally God's work and his purpose. He's working through each of us. So I really, really appreciate all that you do. And thank you so much for being my guest this evening. I greatly appreciate each one of you. God blessings, Godspeed. May the donors triple. May the donors come. May the miracles of God doors open. Doors open. May He provide ways. Let you get some stuff, and they don't even charge you like they don't charge us Mona Page sometimes. May you have the ability to help others and know that your living is not in vain. I'm Dr. Julia Royston, praying today, tomorrow, and always that you live your best life and that your living is not in vain. You all be blessed, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.